Gregor Johann Mendel is considered as the father of genetics. He conducted breeding experiments in Pisum sativum plant, that is garden pea plant, and his work paved the way for classical genetics. So, what we study in the modern genetics, it actually evolved or developed from the classical genetics. So, this field of genetics is established by the work of Gregor Johann Mendel. And as far as the life of Gregor Johann Mendel is concerned, and I advise the students to read more about his life, because the life of Gregor Johann Mendel, so where he was brought up and how he studied and what work he did, he actually worked as an abbot in a church, and he conducted his experiments in his spare time, and he did his he planted these garden pea plants and he studied it in the nearby area around the church. So like this, there are many things which a student must study, especially about this Gregor Johann Mendel, because he's a very great personality in our subject and his life itself is inspiring, right? Here, because of the restrictions, we will not go into that detail. You can read it in any textbook. He was born in Czech Republic in 1822 and he died in 1884. So he lived for 62 years, right? And he conducted breeding experiments on garden pea plant, that is Pisum sativum plant. You know, there is inheritance. There is something called inheritance or heredity. We all know what is inheritance. Inheritance is transfer of characters from the parents to the offspring, right? So that is heredity, and that is the property is called inheritance. So from the time immemorial, humans observed this particular pattern called inheritance. So you can observe this in the nature, right? The characters are being transferred from the parents to the offspring. So the question was how it happens. So everybody wanted to know, every scientist wanted to understand this. Different scientists gave different answers, and now we have reached the stage and we know exactly how the characters get transferred from parents to the offspring in the form of DNA, genes, and how the genes get expressed. So we all know it with the help of modern science and equipments and techniques. But in the beginning, so they wanted to understand how it happens, right? And Gregor Johann Mendel is also interested in that particular topic. So he wanted to know how the characters are transferred from parents to offspring. So to study this, he selected Pisum sativum or garden pea plant. Now the question is why he selected a plant and why he selected Pisum sativum. See, when it comes to the genetics, when it comes to the study of inheritance, you need to have many generations. See, if you want to understand how the characters are transferred from generation to generation, you need to observe you need to observe many generations, right? If you take an animal model, it takes a lot of time. You just imagine if you want to study the inheritance of characters in human beings, say one character, how it is transferred for 3 generations or 4 generations, you need to study it for 20 or 30 or 40 years, right? It will take 40 years just to study 5 generations. Now we don't have that much of time, right? So therefore he selected plant, and especially the pea plant. The advantage of pea plant, or the uh, significance about pea plant, is you can grow them very easily. You can grow them in large number, right? And you will get many generations in a single year. So that's how you can study the inheritance for many generations in a short duration. So because of all these things, he selected this plant. And one more thing is, it is very easy to self or hybridize this particular plant. So that's why he selected garden pea plant. And in the garden pea plant, there are hundreds of different characters. And he selected 7 characters, right? He studied the inheritance of 7 characters. So in the next slide, I am going to tell you what are those 7 characters he studied. So he did experiment. You remember he studied the inheritance of characters separately. He didn't mix it. So that is one of the reason for the success of Mendel, right? Mendel's work. He got correct results because he didn't mix the things. Say, when he was studying the inheritance of one character, he concentrated only on that particular character. So what type of characters are expressed, what type of variations are observed in other characters? No, he didn't worry. So he concentrated on only one particular character at the time. So therefore he could get the clear-cut results. And his skill as a mathematician and a statistician, they helped to get the results. So he conducted his experiments for many years. So as I told you, if you read a textbook, you will get the details of his work, how many years he worked, where he worked, etc. And after working for many years and after getting the results and interpreting them, he published his results in a paper called Experiments on Plant Hybridization. And he presented the paper in a small group of scientists called Natural History Society of Brno, right, in Moravia. So he presented his results before a small gathering of scientists of Natural History Society of Brno in 1865, right? So his work was published in 1865. The problem was, when he presented his paper went unnoticed because that group itself is consisted of very small number of scientists, and they couldn't understand the significance of Gregor Johann Mendel's work. So in this way, Gregor Mendel's work went unnoticed. That was the first problem, right? Nobody recognized him as a scientist when he was alive. His work was not at all recognized. And another problem is, when some other scientists, some other botanists conducted same type of breeding experiments with some other plants, they got a little bit different results. So that also led to the question of authenticity of Mendel's work, right? So, but now we know why the other scientists got different results. So they are known as non-Mendelian pattern of inheritance. But at that time, even Mendel was not aware of that phenomenon. And when others got different results, even Mendel himself got confused. So he himself doubted his own results, right? So as I can say, he died in 1884, and he was not at all recognized as a scientist. Gregor Johann Mendel published his work in 1865, and as I already mentioned, his work went unnoticed at that time. Later, three botanists, Hugo de Reis, Karl Correns, and Erich von Schermach. So these three botanists, they were working on different plants. They were also working, they also wanted to study the inheritance of characters from parent plant to the offspring plant. They were working on different plant. What happened? These three botanists, they worked in different places. They worked independent of each other, but they got same type of results. Now, what happened? Since they got same type of result about the pattern of inheritance, and they wanted to publish their work. Now, before they published their work, they wanted to confirm whether somebody has already done such kind of work and somebody already worked on this particular problem. And during this search, they came across the work of Gregor Johann Mendel, right? So see, his work was published in 1865, 1866 actually. It was published in a local journal, and they came across that particular paper. How many years? Almost after 15 years. And they got shocked because whatever results they wanted to publish now about their work, so it was already published by Gregor Johann Mendel. So Gregor Johann Mendel got the same results 15 years ago. But the problem was, nobody understood that work at that time. So what these three good botanists did was they published the work of Mendel and their work together. So it was like, it is famously called as rediscovery of Mendel's work in 1900. So when in 1900, when Gregor Johann Mendel's work was republished, so it got the attention of whole scientific world, the scientific community of all the world, right? So they paid attention to this work because it was extraordinary, right? So in this way, Gregor Johann Mendel's work paved the way for the genetics, right? And Mendel's work is commonly called classical genetics, and it led to the development of modern genetics. So his work was understood and appreciated many years after his death. So that was the sad story about Gregor Johann Mendel. Now remember, Gregor Johann Mendel's work was so significant, so important. It stood the test of time. Till today, whenever we want to study genetics, so every student who studies genetics starts with the study of Mendel's work. See, without understanding Mendel's work, you cannot understand the genetics. So it's like a basics of the pattern of inheritance. He just showed how the characters are transferred from parents to the offspring. So that is what we are going to study in this particular session. Gregor Johann Mendel, as I already told you, he selected Pisum sativum, garden pea plant. So this is a garden pea plant, and he selected 7 characters to study the pattern of inheritance. So the 7 characters, you remember he selected 7 characters, and each character was having 2 distinct variables, right? Say for example, flower color. So one plant was producing purple colored flowers and another producing white colored flowers. So here flower color is the character or trait, and the purple and white represent the variations, right? So this is the character, and this character has 2 types of expressions. One is purple expression, another one is white expression. Then he studied the inheritance of seed color. So one is yellow seed color, another one is green seed color. Then seed shape, round and wrinkled. You may have observed the piece which you bring to prepare the food. You may have observed some wrinkled seeds in that. It's a genetical character, right? Most of the seeds are round, but you also find some wrinkled seeds. Then pod color. The pod color is green and yellow. 2 types of characters are exhibited by the pea plant. Then flower position, axial position and terminal position. Then the height of the plant. So the tall plant and the dwarf plant, right? So we are going to study this particular character in monohybrid cross, right? So these are the 7 characters which were studied by Gregor Johann Mendel, right? Here it is the same picture showing 7 different characters: seed shape, round shape and wrinkle shape, seed color, yellow and green. Here seed color means cotyledon color, right? Then flower color, purple and white, pod shape, inflated or constricted. Then pod color, yellow and green. This is pod shape and this is pod color. And here the flower position. So here you can see the flowers are axial in position, and here the flowers are terminal in position. And the height of the plant, tall and dwarf. So let us start with the study of monohybrid cross in pea plant. Now what is monohybrid cross? The cross between 2 plants differing in one character is called monohybrid cross. Remember, whenever we say monohybrid or dihybrid, we are talking about how many characters we are observing. You remember, whenever a plant produces the next generation plant, it is going to pass all the characters. right? 100, 200, how many characters the pea plant is having, all those characters will be transferred. But how many characters I am observing for my study, that makes the difference. See, if I am observing the inheritance of only one character, then we can consider it as a monohybrid cross. Or if I am considering two characters combined, how two characters are getting transferred from the parents to the offspring, then you can consider it as dihybrid. So like that. Now let us imagine the monohybrid cross. Let us understand this monohybrid experiment done by Gregor Johann Mendel. So one example, so he studied 7 characters and we will take one character, that is height of the plant. As I already told you, height of the pea plant is having 2 expressions. One is tall, another one is dwarf. So Gregor Johann Mendel selected one pure line tall pea plant and he selected one pure line dwarf pea plant. Now the question is, what is a pure line tall and what is pure line dwarf? So before he started with this experiment of inheritance, study of inheritance, he obtained pure lines for each character. So how many characters he is studying? 7. And how many expressions for each character? 2. So total he produced 14 pure lines. So one pure line, I will tell you how it is produced. Theoretically, let us just imagine how he may have done it. So he collected pea plants and let us say he wanted to produce pure line tall pea plant. So how he is going to get the pure line plant? So he will sow them in the land and he will get the pea plants. You know, all the pea plants will not be same. Some of them will be tall and some of them will be medium sized and some of them will be little bit dwarfer. Because his intention is to produce pure line tall pea plant. So what he did, he selected the tallest. Say he has he grown 100 pea plants and in the 100 pea plant he will select the tallest pea plant, right? So he will collect that, he will identify the tallest pea plant and he will self the tallest pea plant. That means the pollen grains of the same plant will be made to fall on the stigma of the same. I mean, it is going to fertilize the egg of the same plant. So this is called selfing. So what he is doing, he is selfing the tallest pea plant. And he that tallest pea plant is going to produce seeds. Let us say he got 100 seeds from that tallest pea plant. So next, he will sow those 100 seeds. And again he will get the 100 pea plants in the next generation. Just imagine how much time it takes. And in the second generation, again the plants will show some variations, but now most of the plants will be taller comparatively. Again he will select the tallest from them and he will do the selfing. He will collect the seeds and he will plant them, right? So he will get next generation of say 100 plants, right? Again he will select the tallest plant, self them. So if it is done for few generations, after few generations what happens, say you are selecting the tallest plant, you will collect the seeds and when you sow them in the land, you will get all the plants which are tall. Say 100 seeds, you are going to put it in the soil, you will get 100 plants, all 100 plants are tall, exact height. So now you can call all these plants as pure line plants, right? So like this, he produced 14 different type of pure lines. You just imagine how much time he took just to prepare to get the pure line plants, right? You just that's what I told you in the beginning. The life of Gregor Johann Mendel and the work of Gregor Johann Mendel is also interesting. Not only the results he got, his experiments themselves are inspirational for researchers and modern researchers and students alike. Anyway, so for his monohybrid cross, he selected one character, that is height of the plant, and he wanted to know what will happen if a pure line tall pea plant is crossed with a dwarf pea plant. You just imagine. So I am going to cross one tall pea plant with dwarf pea plant. How the hybridization done? I hope as a student of botany you know how it can be done, the hybridization between the one plant and another plant. Now let us say when I cross tall plant with a dwarf plant, I may get medium sized plant, I may get tall plants, I may get dwarf plants. So that's what he wanted to know. What kind of plants will appear in the next generation, right? So in what ratio? That's what he wanted to study. So when he crossed tall pea plants with dwarf pea plants, in the first generation, he got all the tall pea plants. That is the observation he did. So none of them were dwarf. All the plants were tall, equal tall. No dwarf pea plant was found. And then what he did, he selfed the F1 plants. I mean the first generation plants. He selected two plants and he selfed them, or he selected one plant and he selfed it. No, it is not like that. He selected two plants and he hybridized them. Then he got the third generation, or you can say F2 generation, we can say. So these are parents. This represented the F1 generation and this will represent the F2 generation. In the F2 generation, he got tall plants and dwarf plants. So tall plants appeared in almost 75% and around 25% of plants were dwarf. So approximately he got 3:1 ratio of tall and dwarf plants. So this is his observation, right? Now, let us move on to the next slide where I can explain it with more detail. So he selected a tall plant and a dwarf plant. And as I told you, they are pure line plants and now we call them as homozygous. I will tell you what is a homozygous plant. And we will call them as parents, right? So phenotype means the physical appearance. The physical appearance of parents was tall plant and dwarf plants. Now, why it is tall and why it is dwarf? Gregor Johann Mendel assumed that this plant is tall because it has a factor for tallness. This plant is dwarf because it has factor for dwarfness. He used the word factors because at that time, at his time, the information regarding chromosomes, DNA was not available, right? Nobody knew what is DNA and other things. Therefore, he called the reason, right, for the expression of character as a factor. Now we call the factors as genes, right? So what Gregor Johann Mendel called factors are now considered as genes, right? So he said that this plant is tall because it is having a factor for tallness and it is having a factor for dwarfness. Remember, this is not the interpretation of Mendel. This is the interpretation of, republished work. Because as I told you, at that time he was not aware about the diploid condition and other things, right? So don't get confused. He simply gave the results in numbers, right? When he crossed two plants, how many variations he got in the next generation. That is the result he gave, and we are just interpreting his results, right? These are not the actual interpretation of Gregor Johann Mendel. These are our interpretations of Gregor Johann Mendel's work so that we can understand it. Now, this is genotype, right? The plant is tall because of the factor it is having. We can consider it as capital T, capital T. And the dwarf plant is having genes or factors called small t, small t. It is homozygous and therefore we are having, since it is pure line or homozygous, it is having both the factors same. Now why 2? Because now we know that each organism is having 2 copies of a gene, because one set of chromosome comes from father and another set comes from mother. So one comes from the maternal parent, another comes from the paternal parent. Therefore, for every character, we have, or the organisms have, 2 copies of genes, 2 copies of factors. That's why we are showing them in 2 numbers. Right? Now, this tall plant and dwarf plant, when they are crossed, so what is crossing? They are going to produce gametes. So gametes, this is the pollen grain, and let us say this is the egg. Now this plant may be treated as male parent and this plant may be treated as female parent. See, Gregor Johann Mendel did another work. So once he considered tall plant as male, and in another experiment he considered tall as female, and he got the same results. Therefore, whether tall plant is a male or female, I mean whether you are going to consider the pollen grain from this or egg from this, doesn't make any difference with the results. That's why we don't mention the sex of the plant, right? So here, let us say it produced gametes. It may be either the pollen grain or the egg. So gamete will be having only one set of chromosomes. At the time of gamete formation, meiosis occurs, and in the gamete, only one factor will enter. And you remember the gametes are normally shown with a circle like this. You must show them with a circle. So since both are capital T, so all the gametes produced by this particular plant is having capital T in its gamete. Remember, it is having factor for all the characters of the plant. Say if the pea plant is having 200 characters, in the gamete you find 200 factors. Since we are studying only one character here, therefore we are mentioning only one factor. That point you have to remember. And this dwarf pea plant is producing gamete with small t factor, right? And fertilization of this and this gamete will lead to the development of a zygote. So from this gamete, capital T comes, and from this gamete, small t comes. Therefore, the zygote or the individual which is going to develop in the F1 generation will be having the genotype as capital T, small t. Now you go back to the results. What happened when he crossed a tall plant with the dwarf plant? In the F1 generation, he got all the plants tall, right? So this is also tall and this is also tall. Phenotype of the parent plant and the phenotype of the F1 generation plant is same. That means both are tall. But you observe the difference in the genotype. This tall plant is called homozygous tall because it is having both capital T, whereas this F1 individual is heterozygous tall because it is having two different factors. One is capital, one is small. Therefore, we consider it as heterozygous tall pea plant. Right? Now, then, as I told you, he continued his experiment. He crossed F1 into F2, F1 into F1. Selfing, we normally use the word selfing because same type of plants are led to the fertilization, for reproduction. So the genotype of F1 is capital T small t, and the genotype of another F1 plant is also capital T small t. Now because it is having two different type of factors, what we say is the gametes produced will be of two types. 50% of the gametes will be carrying capital T and 50% of the gametes will be carrying small t. You just imagine, to make it easier, because you are already aware of what happens in the human being. You know, in case of human male, we have X and Y chromosome. And what are the gametes produced in the male body? Sperms. So we know that 50% of the sperms will be carrying X chromosome, and remaining 50% of the sperms will be carrying Y chromosome. So like this, in the same way, 50% of the gametes, say these are the pollen grains, 50% of the pollen grains will be carrying capital T and remaining 50% will be carrying small t. So it is same here also. So for F2 generation, how the F2 generation is produced? Let us say the fertilization is random. That means each gamete has equal chance. So that's what he observed. In the nature, all the gametes have equal chance of fertilizing with other gamete. So when these two plants were crossed, say this gamete, so fertilization between gamete 1 of this plant and gamete 1 of this plant. So capital T, capital T. So it led to the development of one plant called capital T, capital T. And then say this gamete is fused with second gamete. So it will lead to capital T, small t. And small t gamete of first plant and the capital T gamete of second plant. So it will also produce capital T, small t. So capital I will keep first, right? Then remaining the second gamete of first plant and second gamete of second plant, when they get fertilized, they are going to produce small t, small t. So in this way, we are going to get three different genotypes here. One is capital T, another one is capital T, small t, and the third one is small t, small t. So in F1 generation, we had only one type of genotype, that is capital T, small t. And okay, on the paper, it looks like this. So on the paper, we know that there are three kinds of plants produced: capital T, capital T, small t, and small t, small t. What actually happened in the field? Because we have to we must know what really happened in the field when Gregor Johann Mendel conducted this experiment. So he got 75% of tall plants and 25% of dwarf plant. So he obtained 3:1 ratio of tall and dwarf plant. Now we can interpret it like this. This plant is also tall, this plant is also tall, and only this plant is dwarf, right? So now we have to interpret why it happened. So let me explain it. This gene, right? Now there are two genes or two factors. One is gene for tallness and another one is gene for dwarfness. What he understood is one of the factor will behave like a dominant factor, and the other factor factor means character, right? And we can consider capital T and small t as alleles. You remember this word because in genetics, in classical genetics, in the initial part we have to understand many terminologies. So I am introducing one by one. I am introducing one by one terminologies, right? So the factor, this tallness is decided by a factor and dwarfness is decided factor, I told you. And there are two types of factors. One is capital T factor, another one is small t factors. But these two factors decide a single character. So what is that character? Height. Tall and dwarfness are expressions, but what is the character? Height. See, all of us have skin and skin has a color. So skin color is a character. If skin color is white, that is one type of expression. If skin color is brown, that is another type of expression. Skin color is black, that is another type of expression. So skin has a color. So skin color is a character, whereas the different colorations are considered as expressions. In the same way, plant has a height. Definitely a plant must have a height. So if it is tall, that is one expression. If it is dwarf, that is another expression. So tallness and dwarfness is controlled by factors. And there are two types of factors. One is capital T, another one is small t. So these two alternative forms of the same character, these are two alternative factors for the same character. Therefore, they are considered as alleles. So capital T is one allele and small t is another allele. Now what Gregor Johann Mendel observed is in the first generation, what happened? This is tall plant because both the factors are tall. This is dwarf because both the factors are dwarf. Here, even though there is a dwarf factor, the plant is not dwarf. The plant is tall. It is as tall as this parent tall. So his interpretation was that, or our interpretation is, this capital T is dominant over small t. So the factor for tallness expresses itself even though there is a factor for dwarfness, right? So the character which is expressed in both homozygous condition and heterozygous condition is called a dominant gene or a dominant factor, or the character which is dominant character. So tall pea plant is considered, tallness is considered as dominant because tallness is expressed in both homozygous and heterozygous condition. So that's what you have to remember. Now, what about this small t? It is considered as a recessive gene because it will express only in homozygous condition. Say if capital T is with it, it will not express. So it will remain submerged, submissive. It will not express. So therefore it is considered as recessive. So it will express itself only in the absence of dominant gene. What is dominant? T, capital T, right? Therefore you find dwarf plant only in small t, small t. So this is very clear. Say if the plant is tall, it may be homozygous tall or heterozygous tall. We don't know because you cannot see the genotypes. You cannot see the genes. But we know that it is tall because it may be having both the dominant genes or one dominant and one recessive. But when you see a dwarf plant, it is very sure that both the factors, both the genes are dwarf. So that's what you have to understand, right? Now, I hope you understood this monohybrid cross. And at the end of monohybrid cross experiment, he obtained the plants, and the plants showed 3:1 ratio, right? 3:1 ratio, and 3:1 ratio is called phenotypic ratio because 3 tall and 1 dwarf. And when it comes to the genotype, we find 3 types of genotypes and they exhibit 1:2:1 genotypic ratio. So you remember the phenotypic ratio of monohybrid cross is 3:1 and the genotypic ratio of monohybrid cross is 1:2:1. And some words I have mentioned, and I already explained what are parents, gametes, F1 generation, selfing, and F2 generation. So this is about the monohybrid experiments. Now based on this, let us try to understand the terminologies. I already explained what is the pure line plant, so I will not repeat it. And what is dominant factor? I already explained. The factor which expresses itself in both homozygous and heterozygous condition is the dominant factor or dominant gene, and the character which is expressed is considered as dominant character. And recessive factor is the one which expresses itself only in homozygous condition, and the character expressed by this is called recessive character. And alleles, I already told you, alleles are the alternative forms of the same gene. So capital T, small t are considered as alleles. Phenotype, the physical appearance of the organism. Any organism you take. Here, tallness and dwarfness are considered as phenotypes. Say for example, shape of the ear. This is phenotype. Length of the nose is phenotype. Color of the skin is phenotype. Right? Color of the hair is phenotype. So any character which is visible, physical, so that is considered as phenotype. You remember this word. Genotype means the genetic makeup of the organism which decides the phenotype. Say, let us say the length of the nose is controlled by a gene. So length of the nose is phenotype, and the gene which controls the genetic makeup, whether it is homozygous or heterozygous, that is considered as genotype. So the genes which represent that character can be considered as genotype. And ratio, I told you, 3:1 is the phenotypic ratio and 1:2:1 is the genotypic ratio. And here you can see the exact number of plants he got. See, I just told you about 3:1, but in his real experiment, these are the numbers of plants he obtained in F2 generation: 787 tall, 277 short, so like this, right? And remember, more number of plants will give more accurate results. So if you conduct experiment with very little number of plants, then the result cannot be trusted. So that is another reason for selecting the plant. See, if you have selected animal, it is not possible to obtain such a big number of offsprings. But in plant, it is possible in a short time. Therefore, you can say that is another advantage of selecting the pea plant or plant for the inheritance experiments. Now, lastly, regarding monohybrid cross. So if you understood monohybrid cross and what happened in the monohybrid cross and what is the result we obtained at the end of the monohybrid cross, based on this, right, we can propose the laws. Actually, there is a law called law of dominance, which I already mentioned. Here I have not written it. Law of dominance states that the dominant character, the factor for dominant character will express itself in both homozygous and heterozygous conditions. So dominant character will be expressed in both homozygous and heterozygous condition. That is law of dominance. Now, law of segregation. So law of segregation can be postulated by observing the results we obtained in the monohybrid cross, right? Whenever a pair of factors for a character are brought together in a hybrid, they segregate or separate during the formation of gametes. Now this is law of segregation. See what is happening. Whenever a pair of factors for a character are brought together in a hybrid, see, there is capital T here and this is small t. And these two, capital T and small t, are brought together in this hybrid. So what is F1 plant? F1 plant is a hybrid because it is produced by crossing two different plants, one tall and one dwarf. Therefore, it is a hybrid plant. In the hybrid, what happens? Two different factors are brought together. Okay, what happens to these two factors? Even though they are present together in the hybrid plant, at the time of gamete formation, see, this plant is having both capital T, this plant is having both small t, and hybrid is having capital T and small t, but the gametes produced by the hybrid plant is pure for a particular factor. See, in one gamete, only one factor can go. Either capital T will go or small t will go. There is nothing like in between, right? So therefore, it is also considered as law of purity of gametes. So the factors which come together in hybrid plant, they get separated at the time of gamete formation. So that's what the law of segregation states. In the nature, gametes are always pure for a particular character. Plants can be hybrid, but gametes have pure. The gametes are pure when it comes to a particular character. Either it is carrying a dominant gene or it is carrying a recessive gene. So a gamete like sperm or pollen grain, it can carry either the dominant factor or the recessive factor because it can carry only one allele, right? That's why, therefore, gametes are always pure. Either the gamete is carrying dominant allele or recessive allele. So that is the law of segregation. So try to understand the law of segregation. Law of segregation is stated based on the results obtained on the monohybrid cross. I'll just read it again. Whenever a pair of factors for a character are brought together in a hybrid, they segregate or separate during the formation of gametes. So at the time of gamete formation, they separate. According to this law, one gamete can carry a gene for only one expression of a character. This law is also called law of purity of gametes, right? So that's about the law of segregation. So in this particular class, we studied the Mendel's work, some introduction we studied, and then we understood the monohybrid cross. Right? I hope you understood the monohybrid cross and the terminologies, etc. In the next class, we will understand the dihybrid cross of the Mendel's experiment.